Hey everybody, I'm gonna try and do this again because for some reason the first time it didn't record. So we are going to try and figure out, well, at least try and get this one done, and then we'll move on. Hopefully, I'll do the other one. So last time this one only lasted about 15 minutes, so we're going to try and do that. So yesterday or today we did the candle problem. And of course, here it is. This works better when they actually used to have matchboxes that are that were wood, not cardboard, and or at least it's like pressed wood where you could get these in. But you can see in the actual solution, you've got to be able to. It's a flat tack. So, and I didn't have those. I just had those push pins or whatever you call them. So, but that is the answer. And again, that looks at functional fixedness. All right. And inability to see a problem from a fresh perspective. This impedes problem solving. An example of fixation is functional fixedness. So here we were fixated on staying 2D instead of going 3D. Of course, once I said think three-dimensional, then boom, the answer hit. All right, this one was a little more tough, but I think it was also a good example. And you see these push pins are fairly short. So, some of you all trying to push them in and then kind of set the candle on it would not have done much. So, all right, so we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about how we make decisions or form judgments. If you think about it, every day when you get out of bed, you make hundreds of decisions and judgments. Am I going to wear this? Am I going to wear that? When I pick up my phone, am I going to look at this website or that website, this app or that app? Am I going to check my texts? Am I going to check the weather? So you make judgments on whatever order you're going to do that through, and then you make decisions on those judgments, or vice versa. All right, but generally, these are used using systematic reasoning. All right, I'm going to do this because X, Y, and Z. One of the things that we use, as we talked about a couple days ago, remember we talked about heuristics. These are these sort of rules of thumb that help us solve problems. They may not be correct all the time, but they're generally much quicker than using algorithms. All right, well, there are two. We're going to talk about two types of heuristics. The first type is a representative heuristic, and the second type is the availability heuristic. And these were identified by Tversky and Kahneman. All right. So the first one I want to talk about is representative heuristic. And this is essentially judging the likelihood of things or objects in terms of how they will seem to represent or match a particular prototype. All right. And this is an interesting little anecdote. If you meet a slim, short man who wears glasses and likes poetry, what do you think his profession would be? An Ivy League professor or a truck driver? All right. Now, most of us would probably say he seems more like an Ivy League professor. All right. That we would say his profession would more likely be an Ivy League professor and not a truck driver. And the reason is slim, short, glasses, and poetry lend themselves generally to people who are Ivy League professors. But that is actually not the case. Think about the probability of people who are truck drivers to Ivy League professors. There are hundreds of thousands of truck drivers in the world, or at least in the U.S., and maybe 8,000 or maybe a few thousand Ivy League professors. All right. So if you think about that, he's much more likely to be a truck driver than he is an Ivy League professor. All right. But the thing is that um, slim, short, with glasses, and likes poetry, the representative heuristic or the rule of thumb is going to put him in the Ivy League professor. So that's where this can sort of get in the way of problem solving and making judgments and decisions. We don't think about the fact that there's however many more hundreds of thousands of truck drivers and Ivy League professors. We look at that those characteristics represent and make a decision based on that. So that's representative heuristic. How something thing or an object represent or match our particular prototype of that thing. And then the next one is the availability heuristic. Why does our availability heuristic lead us astray? Whatever increases the ease of retrieving information increases its perceived availability. Now you're looking at where are you getting information? How did you gain the knowledge? Is it a reliable source? How is retrieval facilitated? Is it being shaped by other questions? And here are three things that will influence that. How recently did you hear about the event? How distinct is the event? And how correct is the event? You see this a lot, especially in high schoolers, as they're trying to, and it usually deals with, I'm going to go ahead and say it, girl drama. He said, she said, or she did this, or whatever. All right. There's a lot of things that can get in the way of actually figuring out the truth. All right. And that's where the availability heuristics come in. How long ago did this happen? Or how long ago did she say this? Or how long ago did she do this? Was it 5 minutes ago, an hour ago, yesterday, a week ago, a month ago? She did this last month. All right. And then that sort of leads you down this other rabbit hole. How distinct is the event or behavior? Did she just do this to you, or did she do this to somebody else? Is this something that is distinctly only dealing with yourself, or is this something that deals with the whole school or the state or the country, or how distinct is it? And then finally, just how true is it? How correct is it? When I've done principal things before, one of the things that happens time and time again, one person says something that is taken completely out of context or is actually not correct at all, and somebody else acts on that incorrect information. And then you get a fight, or you've got Facebook bullying or other social media bullying or whatever. And it's all because the information originally was incorrect. So the availability of correct information on a timely matter that is distinct gets us in the way of really finding out what the truth is, kind of leads us astray on our judgments and things like that. So that is representative heuristic and availability heuristic. Again, these are rules of thumb. Some of the other things that gets in the way of us coming up with the correct answers, or that get in the way of problem solving, is overconfidence. We think that our failures can be easily explained, and that if we fix this one thing, then we're going to succeed. Overconfidence is a tendency to overestimate the accuracy of our beliefs and our judgments. We're right. We may have been wrong earlier, but now we're right. And you see this a lot in the stock market. If you've ever seen, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Big Short. It's a movie about the stock market, or the housing bubble crash, and the economic collapse that happened in the late 2000s. It shows beautifully the overconfidence in a lot of things. In the stock market, the overconfidence in business practices, the overconfidence in banks. It's a really, really good movie. if you want to learn a little bit how stock markets work and all that. And it's very entertaining. It is a little crude. I think it's rated R. But it is a good movie. And again, here's an example of overconfidence in the stock market. Both the seller, the person who is selling the stock, and the person who is buying the stock are confident in their decisions on that particular stock. So the seller thinks, you know what? It's not going to go up very much higher than it already is, so I'm going to sell high and make the most money I can now before it drops. The buyer is looking at it and says, you know what? I think this is going to go even higher. If I buy now at $2 a share, I can probably sell it next month or next week at $4 a share. So I'm going to double my money. So you know what? I'm going to buy. So you got the seller saying it's as high as it's going to go, and you got the buyer saying, oh no, it's going to go way higher. So overconfidence drives those decisions because each one thinks they're right. Somebody's going to lose money at some point. Another one is exaggerated fear. This is pretty much just what it is. It's being afraid of things that are fairly unfounded. You know, an example is after 9/11. I know many of you were not alive or were just very, very small when this happened. I remember I was in college. I remember it perfectly. I remember where I was when I found out, and I remember watching the whole thing unfold. But it led to sort of an exaggerated fear that somebody was going to do it again. And so because of that fear, there was a huge drop in airline travel, and many airlines had to get bailouts from the government, and that's when you start seeing some of these nickel and dime fees for everything under the sun that most airlines give so that they can make up some sort of money. But you know, people stopped flying for a pretty long time for the fear that they were going to be on the next plane that was going to crash into a building. And you know, truth be told, it's a fairly long stretch or unfounded fear that was going to happen again. But exaggerated fear is another roadblock, I guess you could say, of problem solving. And then the last couple I want to talk about with this video is the effects of framing. Decisions and judgments may vary significantly, or may be significantly affected depending on how the issue is framed. I know we've got some farmers in this class, so this ought to be right up your alley. What is the best way to frame or to sell ground beef? Do you sell it as this is a quarter fat or 25% fat? Or do you frame it as how lean it is? This is 75% lean. You see this a lot in advertising in general. 50% more fat-free. Well, 50% more than what? All right, we don't really ask those questions. So a lot of times you got to look at how things are framed. You know, $10,000 off. Well, this new car. Well, that's fine, but if you're adding $15,000 the night before, is that you really getting much of a big deal? Not really. So a lot of it is how questions or problems are framed or presented to us can lead us astray or lead us the wrong way as we're trying to solve problems. Belief perseverance phenomenon. Belief perseverance is a tendency to cling to our beliefs in the face of contrary evidence. You see this a lot, especially in young people, as it turns to smoking or tobacco use in general. Yes, I know it can cause cancer, but it's not going to happen to me. Or I think they're just full of it. The flat earth people, if you know what I mean. There's a group of people out there who still believe the earth is flat. They think that the fact that the earth is round is a load of crap. And they think their people, for whatever reason, are trying to fool us, the great masses, into thinking that the earth is round instead of flat. Even though there is a huge amount of contrary evidence that shows that the earth is round, these people still cling to their belief that the earth is flat in the face of that. You know, and you may see these people and think they're they're dumb. They're idiots. They're dumb, whatever. But they're suffering from, or they're a part of this belief perseverance phenomenon. And this happens to us on a much smaller basis. Again, I see this a lot with dealing with you all, with teenagers, as you try and explain why you have done something that is wrong. I did this because X, Y, and Z made me do this. And a lot of it has to do with sort of a shifting of blame. Maybe, maybe not. If that teacher hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have told him off. Well, it doesn't really matter. You may think you're right in doing that, but you have read and you've signed the student code of conduct, so you're still wrong. So, anyways, but you get the idea. People will believe things even though there's a large amount of evidence that suggests otherwise. And think about North Korea. Let's say you hear a news story that North Korea is moving battleships and tanks to one end of the I just lost my train of thought. One end of the country. All right. Now, we perceive North Korea as always being hostile. So if I was told that North Korea was moving tanks and battleships to one end of the country, I'm going to be thinking, well, they're planning an attack of some sort. All right. Because although that is an ambiguous action, I will see that as a sign of hostility because I perceive that country as being hostile. So again, the belief perseverance phenomenon kind of takes what we know, and we may not have any evidence that they could be just an exercise, it could be just training, it could be that Kim Jong-il is having a birthday party on one of the ships and want to make sure he's going to be safe. All right, but the fact that it's ambiguous and we perceive that country as hostile, we are going to see their movements as being hostile. Again, belief perseverance phenomenon. And then finally, there's intuition. Intuition may be perilous if unchecked, but may also be extremely efficient and adaptive. You've heard of things like mother's intuition. My mom tells a story that when she was working, wherever she was working, and in her mind, she saw one of her kids get their mouth busted. Well, that kid turned out to be me. I was in 4th grade. I was on the merry-go-round. I was leaning forward and using the centrifugal force to sort of keep me up balanced. Well, when the merry-go-round slowed down, my feet slipped out from under me, and I smashed my face on the bottom of this metal merry-go-round, chipped my teeth, cut my lip. It was nasty. But my mom said she looked at the person she was next to. She said, somebody's going to call me because my kid just busted his face. She actually thought it was my brother. And then like 2 minutes later, come over the loudspeaker for mom to come to the front. So that's one of the stories moms tell as sort of having a mother's intuition. So that's about it for this one. We talked some about language earlier today. I'm going to make this one here. Probably won't be till after school. But anyways, hopefully this works, and hope you all are having a good weekend. And we will see you all on Monday for a very short week. Go Thanksgiving. Peace out.